Urvashi is here from her role as a dancer in the court of Indra.
I really appreciated tonight's guided meditation, especially the gratitude for grace and taking refuge with God, because I feel like that's everything.
Yes,
the surrender and the taking refuge.
Yes.
And this retreat's brought up a lot. I resonate with everything you've said, and it's been agonizing for the ego, of course. But my question is, what does happen to the consciousness when the body dies if one hasn't realized the self?
There are different destinies depending both on whether it is in the middle of the kalpa or at the very end. If this is your last lifetime, and it may be, simply because of the situation, before the next yuga begins, then all will return into the light. Even though there will be have to be a passage through a Bardo state in which those sanskaras will become purified to the point that they remain only as latencies. And then the soul will go into a kind of suspended animation, but in the blissful light, and will be saved. There will be no sense of any separation from God. And so the consciousness will be in a state in which it is completely free from any mental content, right, in that state, which will be beyond time and space. But there will come a time when those latent sanskaras will then reappear, and you will believe that you were born again. You're never actually born. It's only the sanskaras that are born. And what are sanskaras? They're just collapsed waves of ignorance. So ignorance gets reborn, but not the soul or the self, right? So it's not a something to worry about. One should never interrupt one's love of God and one's surrender to God out of fear that something will happen, that you won't be able to achieve it or whatever, because those thoughts then create that sanskara, they strengthen it. So don't give in to any fears whatsoever, nor even to desire, but simply surrender the sense of separation from God and be in that state of presence, and you will receive the grace that will actually liberate you from those sanskaras and enable you to reach the angelic realm and even the avataric realm and be reborn, if at all, in Sat Yuga. So that should be the intention that is never disturbed by fear, okay? Don't ever give in to that, because it's always based on an illusion.
I thought it was very interesting. You were talking about like the ego as an self-agitation machine. Mm-hmm. And like, I always thought I had a very dysfunctional ego, but like, now that I know it's a self-agitation machine, I think I have actually one of the best egos going.
Does a good job of agitating you. That's good.
It's very functional, yeah, at doing that. But so you brought that up Friday, like yesterday. And what was interesting was I woke up Friday morning, and sometimes this happens. Like, so I had a little bit of a question about what happens in these moments. But so like I'll wake up, just kind of hit the alarm and get up without hesitation, and there's no like identification with the mind. Mm-hmm. And there's like a few seconds, and sometimes the mind will just say something, and it's almost like it just talks from a different place. Mm-hmm. And yesterday morning, it said, attachment to irritability. I felt like it was a loss of being able to keep the other away. Oh, I'm irritable, stay away. And they'll stay back, oh, I'm irritable too. And then you keep your distance, and then you can be irritable to God. Oh, leave me alone. I'm annoyed. So it's like, it's a protection, and I feel like it's protecting against the unknown. And
well, it's protecting against peace, right? It's protecting against serenity. So what you received, I would consider a minor revelation. You were told that your ego is attached to irritability. It's a choice that you're making. It's not forced on you. And so that means you can redecide not to be attached to irritability, and you can conquer that horse and tame it, and it will herd your cattle for you. So you don't need to fight it. All you need to do is let go of the attachment to self-disturbance, right? And then you might find actually that life is far more interesting without the disturbance, and that your mind is able to reach higher states of intelligence and creativity when the disturbance isn't there, and receive inspirations, and ideas that you never would have been able to receive and understand because of the disturbance. So you will see that there is a great value to becoming detached from it. And there isn't much to lose by it, right? Except, as you say, it is kind of weaponized. It defends you because you're so consumed by that the outside doesn't disturb you as much. You've mastered that by disturbing yourself even more than anyone else could do, right? So that was probably your way of defending against the parents, and you would be such a disturbance to them that they'd have to pay attention to you, right? It's probably a good strategy as a kid, but it doesn't really serve you anymore. So I would say that if you really sit with that attachment, you might find it's obsolete, and it'll just fall away naturally. And you're probably very close to that, or you wouldn't have been wanting this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, all of that feels very ripe, and like even just like an hour ago, I was mad at the disturbance in the mind. It's like I'd be so much smarter. There would be so much more intelligence if I wasn't just being disturbed by these things that I'm sort of creating. Yeah.
But don't be disturbed with that thought, right? Right. That now you're disturbed by your disturbance, because then you'll just have 2 layers of disturbance to deal with.
Yeah, I think in that moment I chose, I don't need to stay this way. Like I can just open up.
Okay.
So there was a shift.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You're on the right track. It's great news.
Is there a certain level of like courage that needs to be cultivated and sort of detachment? Because
it's courage to face being different, because as you say, it's unknown. You won't know who you are. You'll have to reorient yourself, because your values are shift. Your way of responding to reality will be different, and you'll be probably much more introverted and receiving more information from the higher mind that will then produce other creative effects that you can't control, but you'll be inspired to do things, whether it's writing or music or some other activity. But it'll be something that will be a transmission from a higher level that will produce beautiful cultural effects upon the whole field, and raise the consciousness of others. So I think that you're ready to enter a new phase of life, which is very beautiful news. Glad to hear it.
Thanks.
I look forward to that flowering, and it's already happening. So it's a lovely process to see unfolding in real time. All right. Is that the last question?
I mean, I could say more about I thought it was really interesting when you're talking about video games. Like, I don't still play video games, But it was definitely something this character used to do, and I'd kind of thought about it recently. And how you said when you're in the imaginary and you're in the fantasies, and that's definitely still going on, that you're out of touch with karma, and then you come, you kind of smack up against it. And I feel like that resonated a lot with the nature of fantasy and becoming out of sync with what the moment is actually asking.
Yeah.
So that resonated a lot. I don't really have a question, but
Okay, beautiful. I'm glad to know that it made sense to you, and it's an aspect of your journey that, in a way, you've already overcome, and now you're playing a much higher game, let's say, with God, and receiving much more creative input from within that will guide you. And you will feel the will of God moving you more and more, not the ego's own desires. And there'll be much more of a connection and a sense of unity with that fundamental mind from which we all have come and are always within. All right? So beautiful. Thank you.
yes, thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Do you have a question about the Bardo, or?
Yeah.
What's that?
Can you be living in that state? Like, I feel like I'm sort of stuck between the rodeo and the radio, and in both realms of sorts.
Yeah, life is one of the Bardos.
Okay.
It's an in-between state, right? That's what Bardo means. It's in between. There will be a state after it. There was a state before it. It's a temporary passage of consciousness. So you're in this temporary movement through those different segments of your own consciousness that are unfolding, and they will keep shifting. So the Bardo is simply the vibrational frequency that is now dominant. Right, and there will come a point in which the information that you're receiving from that Bardo will have finished. You'll have no more interest in it. It will be something that has been mastered. Like if you're in the rodeo and the resistances of the ego are coming up, there will come a time when the ego has been tamed, and you're done with the rodeo, and now you move on to that higher attunement that brings a far more qualitative difference in who you are. And when you're in that next Bardo, the person you are now will have disappeared, and you will literally be someone else, even though the body will not have changed. But your friends probably will all leave you, and other ones will come, and you will be doing different things with whole different attitudes, and everything about your life will be different, except what the form looks like and how it shows up in the world. But its effect on this field, which is a dream, will be different because you will be projecting a different energy, and therefore receiving back from the dream different information that corroborates that Bardo's, let's say, innermost teaching for you, and will clarify what you need to learn at that level. And then you'll go to the next one. It's like a school. We're in a wisdom school. That's what the world is.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. It's a very important question. And I'm glad you're moving through these Bardos and allowing yourself to let go of obsolete Bardos.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for the teaching. I feel like I found you on YouTube about earlier this year, and it's I've attended all the online retreats, and it's been I feel like the way I related to, or anyway, maybe it was my interpretation, but growing up in India, I felt like it was, my interpretation at least was like with the way that I saw it being as stale, or I guess I had a judgment, but I feel like when I saw you communicate it with the presence that you did, it reconnected me with the culture and have developed appreciation. And in my own microcosm and my family, I'm seeing it like a resurrection of it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, just appreciate it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And you're right. I think what you perceived about India is true, and that's why yoga had to come to the West, and Buddhism had to come to the West. All of the Eastern religions have relocated here because India has chosen the digital world, the globalization and profit and being a part of the capitalist empire. And in that has lost touch with its incredibly rich philosophical and spiritual heritage. But India, I don't think, is producing Sri Ramanas anymore, or Anandamayi Mas, or any of those others. At least I'm not aware of that level of being. There may be some wandering sadhus on that level, but the culture is no longer interested in it. It's marginalized because it's the old world, and now we're in a new world, and there's a different paradigm that has no interest in the ascetic transcendence of Maya, but actually considers Maya to be reality, and that which is the real of God is unreal and a fantasy, right? To the modern consciousness. So that's part of the pendulum shift of cultural change. And that's why we're in the end of Kali Yuga, because that cultural power has been lost. And it has been lost in the West as well, right? The Christian tradition is not what it used to be, nor any of the traditions. They've lost that essence.
Yeah, that loss of God, or like being...
Yes, and the real purity of heart that accepts that all of us are children of God, and that there must be a surrender of the ego to that higher power. That's been lost even in the religious conclaves. So what we're doing is very rare and very unpopular and radical. Right. However, as things crash, people will need to return to God, because that'll be the only source of strength that they'll be able to take refuge with. And I think you, in your position as someone who has integrated West and East, will actually be able to be a great healing source for many people who are not able to make that connection, because you've gone through the Bardo of the disconnect and reached a higher state. And I think you'll be able to really help very skillfully other people to rise in consciousness as well. So blessings on that mission.
Namaste. Namaste.
I was really impacted last night with this concept of Zugzwang.
Zugzwang, yeah.
Zugzwang. And it precipitated a very a long night of reflection and my own Zugzwang. And what came up for me was the being trapped in all of the false commandments and commands of the superego.
Yes.
I'm guessing my question is really about how to do that, to really annul, to have the power, the courage, the forthrightness to annul all those vows, so that I'm able to really surrender to God and surrender and take the real ultimate vow.
Well, I think because you are a very high caliber soul who appreciates truth, or you wouldn't be here, you recognize the fact, at least now, I think with great clarity, that you have been worshiping the superego, and it's been a false religion. It's idol worship. And that has caused you to deny the real God. And so it is the repentance, the teshuvah, right, for that, that I think will bring about a total conversion of your identity toward that of tzedakah, of being a real tzaddik and fulfilling the vow to God that preceded that to the system of the family and the mother dyad, etc., and enable you to feel cleansed of what has tainted and stained your heart and your soul and your ability to live in that true nobility that is your real nature, that you have denied in yourself in order to sustain that fantasy of union that was never there at all, right? And now I think it will enable you to, with great empowerment, to release all the lower three chakras and really move into divine love and feel how freeing that is. And then the wisdom that comes that will overflow. So I think you're right on the edge of a new Bardo, to use that term, and to really enter into communion with Ein Sof and feel that infinite, eternal nature of consciousness that is now becoming fully embodied and replacing the old ego that was a limited program of fulfilling of those false commandments. And now the presence of God is such a commanding presence for you that there'll be no return to a lower state. So I think there'll be no difficulty making this transition, because I think the grace of that realization has already been given. So, blessings. Mazel tov.
Toda. Namaste.
Shalom.
Shalom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shunya. The first question comes from Shantimani, who asks, can you please elaborate on the teleosomatic symptoms as a message from the future, which are there to prepare me for what I will have to face?
Okay, it's difficult to generalize because it can be any kind of symptom, but you know it is teleosomatic when the symptom itself awakens you to your need to grow to a higher level of consciousness, of endurance, of empowerment, of surrender to God in order to cope with it and to overcome the sting of it, let's say, and recognize that it was an act of grace to receive this, because it has prompted you to enter into a fuller level of awareness of that need to evolve spiritually to a higher level of your being, and so it will gradually, when you allow that to happen, it will reveal information that the symptom contains, that will emerge when you can contain it in your mind without thoughts about it, theories, desires to cure it with some worldly means, but to actually sit with it and allow it to return to its state of pure information. And from there it will turn into pure light, and the symptom itself will raise you into the blissful light of consciousness if you are able to convert all of the information into that energy, because everything is light, and that information is a direct means of communion with the light, if we will receive it without some kind of a fear reaction, but one of total acceptance. Okay, so I hope that helps.
Thanks. I've got another one from Shantimani.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that when we were going for the lower death drive, sanskaras continue and one will be born again. Why will they be even worse then?
Well, okay, let me first of all say, you are not actually born again. The sanskaras are born again. But the sanskaras will then pull the soul into that lifetime in order to complete its work of processing and turning them those sanskaras into wisdom. But the reason it will get worse simply is that the world is becoming worse, more dark, more destructive. And so if you're reborn in this Kali Yuga, because I think we are so close to the end, you may not even have a complete lifetime. It may be very short. And it may even be like an abortion, because the birth rate is going down, and the wombs available to be born in are there's almost no vacancies anymore, literally, because all the souls are already here. So it may be a Bardo state, actually, at this point. But if it isn't dealt with in Kali Yuga, then it will. The soul may have to wait until the next Kali Yuga, in which that vibrational frequency is present. But the other reason that it tends to be worse is the sanskaras will draw you to be born to a set of parents that will trigger that lower death drive even sooner, and in a way that becomes more overwhelming because of the aversive kind of situation that one will face without understanding, and with those limited repertoires of reaction based on the sanskaras. So it tends to increase the intensity of the problem in order for the need for the solution to be attained more quickly. And so even though it will be worse at the level of the phenomenal, it will be a blessing, because it will necessitate taking refuge with God in order to escape the agony that is self-caused by those sanskaras. I hope that is of help. Okay.
Thank you. From Richard, we have a 3-part question. Here's the first part. Is a catalyst, such as a state of urgency, a peak emotion, or even plant medicines, required to trigger an awakening? And if so, what is the ideal catalyst when one is close to the point of surrender and approaching chakra 7?
Actually, I don't think the concept of needing a catalyst is actually real, because everything happens through the grace of God. If you want to say there was a catalyst for Ramana, it was the fear of death, that he suddenly felt, and that fear of death led him to experience what it would be like to die. And somehow God arranged for his ego to actually die. It's very rare that people who have a panic about death will be able to suddenly have that happen. So whether we consider that a catalyst or simply the grace of God producing a transformation that was the will of God to happen, that's really the way that it goes. So it's not something that you can have a formula for. and check, oh, I should try this or I should try that. No, it's the surrender will produce the catalyst of grace faster than anything else.
The second part is, when one is completed to the best of their ability all the preparatory work, such as awakened Shakti to Chakra 6, purified the vessel, preserved the life force, and cleared their known Sanskaras through inner work, Atmanology sessions, passes through the threshold of no return, realizes the true self, and decides to descend back into the body, how does one best sustain and integrate the awakening long enough for it to become permanent and to prevent it from slipping away and falling back into forgetting?
Well, I consider that to be a false question, because if you have really passed the point of no return and you have entered that state of the real self, the Chakra 7, you don't decide. There's no ego to decide to be re-embodied. Ramana didn't decide anything. He was just swept away to Tiruvannamalai, and he was already gone. He had gone through that gate, and now what his body was doing, there was no personal interest in, or agency of, or any care about. And so everything that happened after that was simply grace. Attendants came to help him, and he found refuge in various temples that were abandoned, and he just sat in stillness until someone finally began to ask him some questions. And then he wrote answers in the sand. He didn't even speak. He had no interest in that. And this man, Shiv Prakash Pillai, wrote it down, and this book, Who Am I, appeared. And suddenly, he becomes a famous guru. He had no intention of any of that happening. He was quite happily ensconced in Virupaksha cave, above Tiruvannamalai, and would have stayed there in silence his whole life. But Ramana was no longer this character in the Matrix, and that body was simply used by the infinite intelligence for Shiva's purposes, and everything that came through was an act of God, not a decision by an individual. So I hope that answers the question and makes that clear.
Well, here's the third part. If you're unable to sustain the realization of God consciousness, does it mean that some ego attachments are still present, like the leg weights holding us down? And can these be easily dissolved when in God realization, or must they be fully transcended prior to the crossover?
Oh, they must be fully transcended first, of course. You don't achieve establishment in God realization until all of those weights and impurities, let's say in the soul, have been released, and the purgatory, the purification process has been complete. Then you go from Purgatorio to Paradiso. You don't go to Paradiso first and then have the purification happen. So no, it's the work has to be accomplished first. But if there is true surrender, again, that work is an act of grace rather than based on the effort of the individual, because that individual is the illusion. That's the weight, and that's what has to fall away. So I hope that clarifies that for you. Okay, is that?
We have one more from Veronica, who says, I noticed that this ego cannot bear the full vision of death and mortality for very long. Sooner or later, it returns to denial and buys itself a new dream, either in the form of fear or desire. How can we best use the coming apocalypse to practice memento mori without feeding the tragic and panicked mind? In other words, how can we distill the horror of death in the cauldron of the heart so that the love and beauty of it can nourish the soul and help it detach from the ego and attach itself to God. And speaking of detachment, can the ego really remove its own Velcro strips little by little, or can only grace remove them all at once?
Well, grace does it, but it moves the individual to do it. So it's not one or the other, because the individual isn't real. And so the more that there is that desire to let go of the unreal, the more that the grace of the real it moves one to achieve it. So let me go back to the first part of the question. Now, is it on here? Because I may want to actually look at it, because this was a complicated one. Okay, the full vision of death and mortality. So I think that the first thing that has to change is a paradigm shift to recognize that this is actually the realm of death. You are dead to your real self here. The ego is a zombie. It's living in delusion, and it's loveless, and it's disconnected and scattered and suffering and in ignorance of reality. This is death. To come alive is to reach God consciousness, which is eternal life, and eternal life with infinite intelligence and joy and love and beauty. And so when one recognizes that this whole concept of the horror of death that you mentioned, what's horrible? No, it's life that is horrible now. And what you're calling death is simply the soul's freedom to realize its eternal nature that transcends this moment of chronos time, and because of its eternal nature is able to recognize the beauty of the kingdom of heaven that's already present if your consciousness is vibrating at that level, and to make life into a manifestation of that divine beauty, because ultimately there is no difference between life and death. There's no duality. And so as the Buddhists say, nirvana and samsara are the same. Death and life are not different. But when you have fully embodied the essence of death, which is Mahakal, the death of death, you have realized your eternal aliveness that extends throughout time and space and beyond. And in that state, the full glory of God becomes revealed to you. And there's no horror of death. There's nothing bad. There's no fear, and there will be no desire in that state because you're already fulfilled. So that's the freedom that the return to God consciousness, which is our original self, brings us. And it's immediate. You don't have to wait till you're dead and out of this plane in order to realize the presence of God. And only by realizing that presence will you be able to face what others will perceive as horrifying events and all of the things that will soon be happening, super volcanoes going off and earthquakes and wars and all of those earth changes. Yes, they will be happening, but when you are in that consciousness of infinite and eternal presence and glory, you will be able to be one who brings peace to those who enter states of dread and horror and anxiety, and bring that energy of serenity into the space. So it is the completion and fulfillment of our own mission to be able to accomplish this while we are still in a living body that can function in this plane and have an impact on the entire morphogenic field.